Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are looking at something incredibly fascinating. If you just glance at the news today, it is so easy to get completely overwhelmed by the headlines, right? We're seeing regional conflicts, supply chain panics, massive technological disruptions, all of it happening at the exact same time. But today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to zoom out. We're going to take a structured look at the world as we approach 2026. We'll start with the immediate, fragile shockwaves of today's geopolitical landscape, and then we'll pull all the way back to look at the undeniable long-term macro trends of human progress. It's going to be a really eye-opening journey.
All right, let's dive right in. Here is our roadmap for today. First, global geopolitical shockwaves. Second, the new economic choke points. Third, the AI infrastructure boom. And fourth, the long view of progress.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, Global Geopolitical Shockwaves. So, when we look at the immediate and the urgent, our goal here isn't to take political sides. Instead, we want to ask a fundamental macroeconomic question. How do regional wars actually reshape the global economy? If you look at data from the Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum regarding recent conflicts in the Middle East, specifically the tensions involving Iran, it shows us something really important. In our highly interconnected world, a localized conflict is never truly localized. The economic ripples literally touch everything.
Just look at the immediate ripple effects of the current instability in the Middle East. It has taken fragile energy dependencies in Asia and turned them into actual full-blown emergencies. It's forcing governments around the world to step in as insurers of last resort just to keep global trade moving. We are seeing major, real-world shipping threats in critical arteries like the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz. On top of that, we're facing an entirely reshaped global cybersecurity landscape, and even the sustainable aviation fuel market is feeling the squeeze. So these regional shocks, they create immediate, tangible global fragility.
And the crucial point here is that it's rarely just about one single resource anymore. This insight from the World Economic Forum perfectly highlights that a crisis in a place like the Strait of Hormuz disrupts far, far more than just oil. Modern geopolitical shockwaves disrupt a massive, interconnected web of commodities and global supply chains, which actually brings us directly to our next phase of the discussion.
Moving on to Section 2, the new economic choke points.
Now we're moving from immediate zones of conflict to deeper, underlying structural vulnerabilities. Based on some really interesting analysis from the Council on Foreign Relations, we can identify two profound areas of U.S. structural dependence on China. On one side, you have essential medicines, meaning a growing reliance on biologics manufacturing, synthetic DNA, and early clinical trials. And on the flip side, it's critical minerals, the absolute dominance in the mining and processing that's required for both the tech boom and the green energy transition. These aren't just passing market trends, you guys. These are deep, structural realities that dictate global economics.
So what's the playbook here? How do nations respond when they can't simply outmine or outmanufacture a competitor? Well, the strategic consensus right now is a leapfrog approach. Step 1, scale disruptive innovations to find completely alternative materials. Step 2, vastly improve our recovery methods. And Step 3, optimize recycling. The idea is you don't beat a choke point by playing the exact same game. You bypass it by changing the rules of resource management entirely.
Which leads us to Section 3, the AI infrastructure boom.
Keeping this whole idea of resources and infrastructure in mind, we have to shift our focus from physical minerals over to the digital realm. And I want to anchor this with one absolutely staggering number, 1,300 times. According to Our World in Data, that is how much NVIDIA's revenue from data centers and AI has grown in just the last 12 years. 1,300 times. It's a scale of growth that is honestly almost difficult to wrap your head around, but it is physically reshaping our digital world as we speak.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the rapid shift in focus. Back in early 2014, data centers and AI accounted for just 5% of NVIDIA's revenue. Gaming was totally their bread and butter. Fast forward to today, heading into 2026, and data centers and AI make up over 90% of their revenue. AI has shifted from this tiny experimental fraction of the hardware market to completely and utterly dominating the entire space.
And this immense, explosive growth, it brings us right back to geopolitics. Because AI isn't just invisible software living in the cloud, it is physical hardware. It requires massive, energy-hungry data centers. And as the World Economic Forum points out, it is time to start treating these AI data centers as critical national security assets. They're essentially the new power plants, the new strategic ports of the 21st century, which means they are newly vital targets. And because of this sudden paradigm shift, global institutions are literally scrambling to catch up and govern it all. We are seeing the UN form AI panels to try and balance the science with the politics. The Pope has literally issued a mandate to act as a moral safeguard for AI development. Over in the US, they're circulating national security memos specifically addressing AI vulnerabilities. And underneath all of this, economists are urgently focusing on how this is going to impact smart job creation. It is a massive structural shift, and it's happening in real time.
Finally, let's transition to Section 4, the long view of progress.
Okay, so far we've looked at wars, economic choke points, and the dizzying pace of AI. I know, it can feel a bit anxiety-inducing, but let's deliberately slow down for a second and look at the reassuring long-term data of human history. When we talk about global challenges, resource management is usually right at the top of the list. A great way to measure our progress is through concepts like maximum sustainable yield. Basically, this is the largest catch that can be taken from a fish stock without depleting it so much that future catches decline. By defining our limits like this, we can actually measure our successes and our failures as a species.
And the data, which is compiled by the UN and Our World in Data, tells a really nuanced story. Yes, overfishing is a real, serious challenge. Just over a third, about 35% of global fish stocks are overexploited. But think about the flip side. That means 65% are managed sustainably. While we definitely still have work to do, having this data helps us accurately measure, track, and enforce global sustainability efforts. We aren't just flying blind anymore.
And when humanity really focuses on a problem, the results can be pretty miraculous. Just look at this massive public health victory. At the turn of the millennium, 20% of adults in India smoked tobacco. Today, that number has halved to 10%. Shifting human behaviors on this massive of a scale literally saves millions of lives over decades. It proves, without a doubt, that negative trends can absolutely be reversed.
Now, of course, as we conquer old threats, new ones naturally emerge. Historically, our absolute greatest health challenges were widespread child mortality and extreme grinding poverty. Today, as living standards rise across the globe, we face new challenges, like rising obesity. For example, in Pakistan, the share of overweight adults has tripled in just 20 years to nearly 60%. It is a serious health crisis, absolutely, but it is a radically different kind of crisis than the global starvation of previous centuries. It's really a side effect of changing, improving living standards.
Okay, I have to say, this is one of my favorite data points of all time because it paints such an incredible picture. The declining cost of light. In the 14th century, to produce 1 million lumen hours of light would have cost you around 34,000 pounds in today's money. It was an extreme luxury. Today, thanks to human innovation, that exact same amount of light costs about 2.15 pounds. That is a 16,000-fold decline. We literally conquered the darkness and made it virtually free.
When you step back and review the macro data, the triumphs of human progress are just undeniable. We have seen child mortality rates plunge globally, extreme poverty has dropped to historical lows, and perhaps most astonishingly of all, global average life expectancy has risen from just 32 years old back in the year 1900 to 71 years old today. We have literally more than doubled the human lifespan in just over a century. How amazing is that?
Which brings us to our final thought. The data proves that we have mastered the cost of light, we've halved global poverty, and we have doubled human life expectancy. The long view is incredibly optimistic. But as our opening headlines reminded us, our current geopolitical systems and new economic choke points are fragile. So the ultimate question for the next decade is this. We know we have the capacity for incredible progress, but can we master the